Welcome to Zoom Palestine. Here's some traditional music of Palestine while we're waiting for people to come on.
Hi. Yeah, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, yeah, how are you?
Good.
Yes.
Good. Hanging in.
Yeah, okay. Well.
Okay. Right. Traditional music of Palestine.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good.
This is another epic mixtape going viral, mixed by DJ Ashloff.
So, welcome to Zoom Palestine. Charlotte, it looks like just you and me. I think changing the day to Saturday may have confused people on this being a holiday weekend, but I still have poetry to share with you. I'm going to show a very interesting video to start with on Palestinian poetry and music because they're very connected together in Palestinian and Arab culture. So let me get that video for you. It's there's songs for the love of Palestine from Al Jazeera, and it's a video that talks about. We won't watch the whole thing, but talks about the importance of music in our in Palestinian culture and poetry, how it really is extremely important to understand how they connect together.
أنا من مواليد مدينة جنين بفلسطين. بذكر أنا أول موال أنا غنيته كان عمري يمكن 13-14 سنة، كان في مدرسة بنات جنين الثانوية. بكى كل اللي كانوا موجودات في القاعة على أثر هذا. كان سنة 1959 كان استحدث برنامج في إذاعتنا الأردنية الحبيبة، برنامج ركن الهوى. كان بهذاك الوقت دولة المرحوم عبد المنعم الرفاعي مدير الإذاعة. كان والدي الله يرحمه معي، قال له يا أبو يحيى بنتك صوتها كتير حلو، أما نعيدها بالإذاعة هاي عقد ب 13 دينار.
هنا عمان، إذاعة المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن هذا البلد الخالد الذي بارك الله حوله أفتتح دار إذاعة المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية.
أول ما بديت افتتاح الإذاعة الأردنية ب1/3/59 في أم الحران، وبدينا بإنجاز الأغنية الأردنية. أغنية وين عرم الله هي أصلا وين عباب الله.
So it's interesting that Jordan Radio opened up and the first song that they played was called To Ramallah. As you know, it opened up in 1959 that about 85% of the Jordanian population were displaced Palestinians.
شوفير التاكسي وين عباب الله وما تخاف من الله. يعني كانوا الستات وقت ما بيطلعوا فاردي يجيبوا العروس يغنوا للشوفير الباص حتى يشدوا من عزيمته، يشد في السواقة، يشد في كذا.
ودائما أي مسافر عند انطلاقه للسفر الناس تتمنى له العودة السالمة، فإذا سألوا أحد أنت مسافر وين؟ فبيقول وين؟ على باب الله.
اجتمعت اللجنة بهداك الوقت بالستينات، دولة الشهيد بوصف التل، دولة الشهيد هزاع المجالي، دولة حابس باشا يعني كبار رجالات الدولة. قالوا ليش ما نعملها وين على رام الله؟ رام الله كانت هي مصيف الأردن وفلسطين قبل 67.
So Ramallah was a summer resort for Palestinians and Jordanians before the occupation.
Here we go.
We have an ad that we have to skip.
كان الشيخ رشيد زيد الكيلاني سريع البديهة بالكتابة لأنه كان أستاذ أديب بالبادية الأردنية، وفعلا تعي شيخ رشيد شو تكتب؟ أنطى مقاطع دولة هزاع المجال، وين عرم الله والفي يا مسافر وين عرم الله، ما تخاف من الله، خديت قليبي ما تخاف من الله. يعني وحدة أخوها صديقة حبيبها أخوها بسافر على رام الله بتبلش تعاتبه.
هذه الأغنية جميلة بعدما كتب كلماتها الشيخ رشيد زيد الكيلاني قدمها للملحن جميل العاص. الملحن جميل العاص فنان مبدع وملحن كبير، أعجبه هذا الحس المرهف في أغنية وين عرم الله، وجاء معه اللحن مكملا للحن التراثي الذي كانت تغنى به الأغنية، فهذبه وجمله وأخرجه بصورة موسيقية أجمل. وبدأ البحث عن مطرب أو مطربة يغني هذه الأغنية. قدمت لهذه الأغنية للفنانة سلوى وأجادت في غنائها. رام الله هي مكونة من مقطعين. رام هو المكان المرتفع في اللغة الكنعانية. أضاف العرب لفظ الله عند دخول الإسلام إلى المنطقة. الأغنية ارتبطت بالإذاعة الأردنية التي كانت على مرتفع جميل جدا في مدينة رام الله.
أنا أول ما دخلت الإذاعة صرت أشوف سلوى، أشوف جميل العاص، يعني كلهم هذول بالنسبة لي كانوا حلم، يعني إني أقعد معهم وهم زملائي. وكنا يعني نسجل مثلا الأغاني، معظم الأغاني اللي كانت تسجل طبعا بالإذاعة، ما كانش في تلفزيون في هذاك الوقت. يعني كنا أي تسجيل ناخذ يعني من سلوى نفسها هيك، منها هي ناخذ قوتنا وقدرتنا وعشقنا لآلاتنا الموسيقية. قد ما كانت يعني صوتها عظيم وصوت صارخ إلى حد الطرب.
كان الاستوديو عندنا أول استوديو رقم 1، استوديو كبير. أنا أوقف بمكاني بنفس الاستوديو، الفرقة الموسيقية، الكورال، الجاليري بيكون أمامنا. كان يطلع عمل جماعي متكامل من أروع ما يكون. كانت الأغنية حيوية عكس الأيام هذه.
هي ببداية الإذاعة ما كانش في وقت محدد بالتسجيل. يعني كنا نفوت الصبح على الساعة 10 على الاستوديو نسجل، يبقى لنا الحجز بتاع الاستوديو للساعة 2. إذا من هنا للساعة 2 الأغنية طلعت نروح، الأغنية ما سجلت بنرجع كنا بعد الظهر نضل ورا الأغنية مرة في الساعة 10 بالليل. الإذاعة لأنه كانت في رام الله كانوا يستعملوا اللهجة البيضاء. قالوا لكن لما جينا على عمان قالوا كبار المسؤولين اذكر منهم الله يرحمه دولة وصف التل الزع المجاري يشرف على تسجيل الاغنيه، بدهم اغنيه اردنيه قال بالقال.
وجميل العص يعني بس ما اختصر انه اعطى سلوى جميع الفنانين العرب بالوطن العربي، اعطاهم اغاني على السيمفوني، يعني كان له حضور رائع جدا بالنسبه للاغنيه الاردنيه.
وفعلا كانوا يقعدوا يرقبوا التسجيل، جابوا سميرة توفيق علموها كيف تلفظ الاغنيه الاردنيه، ونجحت الاغنيه الاردنيه وانشهرت يعني على مستوى الوطن العربي.
ما تخاف من الله، هذه تقلبي وما تخاف من الله.
Okay, that was very interesting. I think that it's important to understand the fact that there was enormous culture that existed in Palestine before the occupation by Israel, who claims that it was empty desert, primitive people living in tents with nothing going on in order to justify their acquisition of the territory. So these videos are important to see because they inform us about things that we know very little about, which is the culture, the wonderful culture that existed in Palestine. So with that, hi Charlotte. Well, it's just you and me. You know how it is to be the head of things. You may be the only head. Sometimes you're headless. I mean, you're bodiless. But the rest of the body has not showed up. So I guess changing the date confused people. It's on the weekend, whatever. But what the good news is, I always turn these into videos, and I notice that they are uploaded. So I want to start off actually with a poem that I read, and it's called Paralysis for Palestine. Paralysis for Palestine infects our global bodies of indifference. Mouths are muted, dare not speak the P word. Hands in frozen spasms, never writing of torture of prisoners and children. Ears are closed, deaf to the cries of mothers over the bodies, weeping over their sons. Eyes are blind to the thefts of land, homes, and dignity. Legs immobile, only walking the path of lies. But Yahweh watches this disobedient, evil generation, promises one day to turn their hearts of stone to flesh. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you. And I have another poem to read that was sent to me by Nat Turner. He couldn't come because he is involved in the alternative 4th of July celebration, which is today for Frederick Douglass. I sent you all a link to it in last email, and that's at 7 o'clock tonight, and he's evidently very involved with that.
Okay.
But he sent me a poem to read. So this is Raymond Nat Nat Turner, who has joined us several times, who's quite an amazing guy, African-American poet. And his poem is called, How Will You Pay For It? How do you pay for serial killers cutting fingers off for souvenirs and urinating on bodies of, quote, foreign fighters, or defecating on the Quran? How do you pay for night vision goggles and snipers' scopes peering in Afghan homes? Lives and futures, or ugly white phosphorus unicorns, or rainbow shows blowing babies' heads off. How do you pay for thugs kicking in Iraqi doors at 4 in the morning and spraying warm, welcoming walls and floors terrible crimson? How do you pay for Humvee hubris, boots on the ground, bases in faraway places, aircraft carriers trolling the 7 seas, filling their watches with crushed Coke cans and shit, decade after decade? How do you pay for the 5 families, joint chiefs of theft, their barbaric burn pit rituals of waste, their greasy-thumbed Arthur Anderson accounting, pallets full of freshly printed $100 bills going poof like morning dew in the desert? How do you pay for assassination a go-go, coup of the week, peacock thrones and acrobatic diplomats dangling on dicks of dictators while juggling attaché cases crammed with cash for overthrowing dreams and wishes of people's worlds away? How do you pay for genocidal trade shows, horrific hospital bombings, ironically called Operation Cast Lead, or some of the cute sounding name for mass murder? How do you pay for the mother of all bombs, Moab, MOAB, from Fredo in Mussolini mask, blowing up a mountainside in Afghanistan? How do you pay for raining 59 110,000 missiles on Syria to appear presidential? How do you pay for Hitlerite Halliburton Boeing military parades damaging DC streets, and F-16 flyovers at fucking football games 14x to 17 Sundays a year? The bigger question is, how will you pay for the cleanup of depleted uranium, dumping polluted bombing ranges, leaden rifle ranges in 50 states of flint water? How will you pay for powder burn temples, rope snap necks, the opioid outs, mounting scores of daily suicides, broken brains, missing limbs of young men and women, their lifetimes of trauma for your robust third quarter? Wow. Powerful. Very, very powerful. So while we're waiting for more poets, do you have a poem, Charlotte, you'd like to share with us?
Not really. I mean,
all right, we'll go on. What I usually try to catch us up in the beginning on what's been going on. And today, a couple hours ago, the Electrona in Tafada sent us this very interesting article. You remember last week we read about, they published an article about how the Labor Party was stopping people from discussing Gaza and sanctions on Israel. They wouldn't even allow it to discuss. So now the Labour Party is freaking out at the Electronic Intifada. It's really funny. So here's the article. It's worthwhile reading. Britain's Labour Party tried to pressure the Electronic Intifada to alter an article we published last week with an apparent legal threat. The June 23rd article by Asa Winstanley reveals that two Labour officers banned a local party branch from debating a motion calling for sanctions on Israel. It shows Kim Bolton, chair of Hove and Portslade constituency Labour Party on the south coast of England, and Labour's Southeast organizer Scott Horner decided that discussing the motion would, quote, undermine the party's ability to provide a safe and welcoming space for Jewish members. Bolton also concluded that a debate on sanctions against Israel may lead to, quote, anti-Semitic behavior. Winstanley emailed Labour's press office in the Southeast Regional Office where Horner works the day before the Electronic Intifada published his article to ask for comments, but both emails were ignored. But on Monday, Labour's government and legal unit called the Electronic Intifada's general address with a message marked urgent for the attention of Asa Winstanley. The email claimed that it was, quote, neither necessary nor in the public interest, quote, for the Electronic Intifada to name and publish the photograph of Mr. Horner and the name of Mrs. Bolton. Labour claimed that as a result of your article being passed around by activists, it has been necessary to limit Mr. Horner's duties as an organizer owing to concerns for his safety. It did not explain what these concerns were or how his duties have supposedly been limited. The party asserted that the source material you rely on clearly constitutes the personal data of Mr. Horner and Mrs. Bolton, being email exchanges that they would have a reasonable expectation would remain private. In fact, Winstanley's article quotes extracts from the Hove and Portslade party branch minutes, 2 pages of which you can read below. Nonetheless, the party alleged that the, quote, continuing publication of the article in this form breaches the UK's Data Protection Act. We therefore require that you immediately amend your article to remove all personal data pertaining to Mr. Horner and Mrs. Bolton and confirm that you have done so by return, the party asked. The email implied that legal action would follow if the Electronic Intifada did not submit to the Labour Party's demand. I replied to the Labour Party on Thursday explaining that as director of the Electronic Intifada, I had no intention of making any changes to Winstanley's article unless it was shown to contain factual inaccuracies. Notably, the email from the governance and legal unit did not assert that there were any inaccuracies. It did not contest or dispute a single fact. Still, I gave the party an additional opportunity to submit any information showing the article to be inaccurate, but I received no response by my deadline of Friday afternoon in London. Winstanley's article therefore remains unaltered. I also explained to Labour's government's legal unit that the Electronic Intifada is published in the United States, where our right to free speech and to conduct our work as journalists is protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution. The Labour Party has no basis to, quote, require the Electronic Intifada to edit our articles to its liking, especially not for accurate reportage on the acts and decisions of party agents relating to matters of clear public interest. It cannot be the case that the Labour Party officers can misuse their power to silence members concerned about Palestinian human rights and then hide behind a shield of anonymity. Democracy requires transparency and accountability. I told the Labour Party that I consider its email to be a politically motivated attempt at censorship through legal intimidation, albeit on entirely spurious grounds. Indeed, if the Labour Party under its current leader, Keir Starmer is ready to engage in such heavy-handed tactics against the press while it is out of power, it is troubling to think what it might do against critics and independent media should it ever regain control of the British state. Sadly, however, this is all in keeping with Labour Party's zeal to crack down on speech it doesn't like, using whatever pretext may be at hand. Particularly troubling is the false equation of calls for Israel to be held accountable for its crimes against Palestinians with anti-Jewish bigotry. That is at the heart of the story Winstanley reported, evidently to the great irritation of party bureaucrats. It is a point emphasized by Tony Greenstein, a Jewish anti-Zionist and Palestinian solidarity activist who also reported about Bolton and Horner suppressing Israeli sanctions debate. Exceptionalizing Jews in this way was as especially vulnerable if Israeli war crimes are debated. Is clearly and obviously anti-Semitic, Greenstein said. It assumes that Jews form one monolithic bloc. Bolton and Horner are, quote, anti-Semitic for assuming that Jews are uniquely incapable of debating the question of Israel rationally, Greenstein asserts. Very good, interesting point. For Greenstein, the right wing of the Labour Party is using Jews as a, quote, moral alibi, unquote, to silence any questioning of British policy. But of course, it's not about Jews at all, Greenstein writes. It's about British foreign policy in the Middle East, which is based on Israel's role as a strategic watchdog and its industrial military complex, which we know Britain is feeding much arms to, big arms supply to Israel. Crying anti-Semitism when none exists is the British establishment's hammer to smash anyone who objects to Israel's crimes against Palestinians and the UK's role in them. My message to the Labour Party managers or part of its establishment is simple. We will keep doing our job of reporting on you. There is no chance that your attempts at intimidation will succeed. Wow. Very interesting. And I think that what is for us in America, it's something that we may be looking forward to with the Democratic Party. That as the cry for human rights in Palestine and questions about funding, I suspect that once everybody gets tired of being nice to each other and putting up with each other, that the Zionist Democrats are going to come after the Democrats who speak up, and this is already happening with the Squad and stuff. But now the people, the Democrats who question Israel, are actually growing in number in Congress. So this is probably going to create a push against them. So I'm wondering, Charlotte, if we're going to have something similar happening to us here in the United States with the politicians. So, Israel's not going to put up with this, and they're very good at pushing back. What do you think?
That's quite likely.
Yeah. I think we're headed for something like that too. So, and then there's this beautiful article of Palestine and pictures with a monthly roundup of news events. Here's Palestinian musicians performing on the rubble of Gaza City's Hanadi Tower that was destroyed by the Israeli airstrikes. The team is still going on, problems of Israelis shooting and Palestinians arresting them. Remember, there were those two teens who were killed, one 16 in Nablus, one Muhammad Hamayel, and then his friend who was 15 shot the next week, Ahmed Bani Shamsa. And neither boy was doing anything violent or posing a threat. Hundreds more injured in Beta, many of them children, while protesting the new settlement. There's been a problem that 4 Palestinians were killed by Israeli fires in Beta since the beginning of May, where the settlers are establishing a new outpost on land that belongs to the Nablus village, and so they're setting fires to drive the Palestinians out. All of the Israeli settlements in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and is going higher, still illegal international law, and their construction is a war crime, but it goes on. Security got shot, a young man, 28, in Kaladia checkpoint. I've been through that checkpoint. It's just a nightmare. And they shot this woman claiming she was carrying a knife, and ignored the guards to shot. Another woman shot at the attempting to attack soldiers with her car. But there's no witnesses, credible witnesses, that these women had knives or were doing anything. And there are no Israeli casualties reported. Another young man, 24, shot near Ramallah, died. He was shot in May, he died in June during the Beit El checkpoint near Ramallah. And many Palestinians in Gaza have succumbed to their injuries. And the Gaza siege now has actually been tightened, that there are about 8,400 Palestinians displaced from their homes. And electricity only available for 12 hours a day across Gaza. And finally, June 28th, Israel allowed the import of fuel to the Gaza power plant for the first time, but not, the full amount. They eased other restrictions on Palestinians in Gaza after tightening its siege, now approaching its 15th year. Palestinians requiring life savings treatment unavailable were allowed to leave with an Israeli issued permit, as well as those needing longer term treatments. They've extended the fishing area, and they're allowing a limited amount of architectural goods and textiles to be exported for the first time. They're attempting to condition reconstruction on the return of 2 Israeli civilians being held by Hamas in the territory, as well as the bodies of 2 soldiers that they've been fighting over for years, since 2014. Hamas said talks with the senior UN delegation had failed, and Israel is kind of still blackmailing all the Palestinians. The Israel bombed Gaza multiple times, even after the ceasefire. Meanwhile, Israel formed a new government, but Bennett is a proponent of formal apartheid and believes in the annexation of most of the West Bank without giving Palestinians any rights. So the new cabinet has several people accused of war criminals. Ayelet Shaked, who has made shocking statements about Palestinians and why it's good to kill Palestinian children because they're grown to be terrorists, et cetera, and Benny Gantz, who was responsible for much of the slaughter in 2014 in Gaza. So in Jerusalem, Israeli settlers continue to attack Palestinians in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. The journalist was attacked there who covering a protest. They demolished a home in the Ras Al Amud neighborhood of Jerusalem. They destroyed a butcher shop in Silwan, and they attacked Palestinians protesting and demolition with tear gas and batons. Some 90 homes are at risk of demolition in the Bustan area of Silwan, where an Israeli settler group wants to build a national park linked to the city of David, a theme park, which is kind of a fantasy. In my film that I did on the history of Jerusalem, I talk about the significance of the archaeological disputes over the city of David theme park, including Jewish archaeologists and historians who say that there's too many inaccuracies about that park, the site, and the propaganda. 75 Palestinian structures at the West Bank were demolished. displaced about 100 people. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Authority and Fatah forces attacked protesters and rights workers following the death of Nizar Banat, who we spoke about last week, a prominent activist and critic who died in PA custody shortly after his arrest on 24th June. And, you know, the PA, their police are in cahoots with the Israelis. They help enforce the occupation. The apparent killing of Banat and the PA crackdown was condemned by Palestinian political parties and human rights groups. Bachelet, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, called on the PA to investigate the violent suppression of protests by Palestinian security forces, including plainclothes officers and other armed persons. And they've gotten reports of women being targeted, and they call for an immediate end to any gender-based targeting, harassment, threats of violence, etc. So here's some pictures. Here's Palestinian children gathering at their homes in Beit Hanun in northern Gaza, destroyed by airstrikes. Here's Palestinians attending a ceremony in Gaza City honoring families of people who have been killed. Here's an injured protester being evacuated during a protest against a new Israeli settlement built on lands belonging to the villages of Beta, Yatma, and Gabalan near the West Bank city of Nablus in June. And a convoy of bulldozers, excavators, and trucks loaded with construction equipment provided by Egypt arrives on the Palestinian side of the Rafah crossing, southern Gaza. Egypt sent an aid convoy to prepare the ground for reconstruction following the devastation. Egypt's heavily secured Rafah crossing is Gaza Strip's only passage to the outside world, not directly controlled by Israel. So I'm thinking actually when I go in June, I'm sorry, in the fall to Jordan, I may try to go down to Egypt and then through Rafah to get into Gaza. Here's Egyptian excavation equipment used to remove rubble from buildings. And here's Palestinian women and children flying kites on Gaza City. They love to fly kites in Gaza. It's a big event. Kite flying is a big part of the culture. And here's Israeli forces arresting Al Jazeera journalists, woman, female, while she was covering a sit-in. They assaulted her and destroyed her equipment. And there was a condemnation from a press freedom watchdog. And activists Muna El-Kurd in Jerusalem, after being detained by police for interrogation, they were questioned on suspicions. They finally, with a lot of protests, were let out. Palestinian man arrested as the extreme right lawmaker Israeli makes a provocative visit to Damascus Gate. Now, what's going on, and you know Damascus Gate, Charlotte, is that now, you used to be able to just go in and out of Damascus Gate with no trouble, but now the Israelis have made it kind of like a checkpoint, and they have a lot of soldiers there. And, that whole area was a big area for people to gather, for Palestinians to gather. It's right across from the bus station when you want to go up to Ramallah or Nablus or any place. And it's, there's shops across the way and everything. There's no banks, ATM machines, restaurants. And now they've made it into a war zone, which is really sad because I love Damascus Gate. I love the ambience. It was where you could buy coffee and juice and stuff. And now it's a war zone, and they arresting people right and left there, beating them up also, and tear gassing them, and spraying that horrible skunk water on them, which I got experienced when I was in Mount of Olives a couple of years ago. I thought I was going to die. It was just horrible. Here's Palestinians protesting in front of an Israeli court against expelling people from Silwan and Sheikh Jarrah. People carrying the body of a military intelligence officer killed by undercover Israeli forces. More bodies during funerals, and border police guarding people in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is so sad, the city of peace. Man, I can't imagine that it got worse, but from these pictures and from what I'm seeing. Here's a woman bathing her children. The rubble at Palestine is just gotten much worse. And this is like really just gross that the Israelis, when they take over these houses in East Jerusalem, they put up flags and lit Stars of David's. It's just ridiculous. I was there, and the flags, man, when I happened to be there on Israeli Day, or I don't know, some festival, and all of Palestine, all of the roads in occupied Palestine were covered with Israeli flags. It was so obnoxious and so I don't know. It just made me sick to my stomach going around seeing all these flags in the face of all these Palestinians living under such oppression. It's just it's really crazy, the stuff that goes on. So here's more fighting around Damascus Gate, and I'm hoping to go and visit solar panels damaged in Gaza, and I'm hoping to visit Damascus Gate and be able to report from on site there. But these protests, these settlements seem to be continue to expand. And I don't see that the new Israeli government is going to make it any better. So anyhow, so here's some more pictures. You can go to the website of Electronic Intifada. At the end of the month, they give a really good review of everything that's been going on. There, it's a battle, and it's very sad, because this is supposed to be city of peace, Jerusalem, the city of peace. And I just find it very disconcerting. Did you go to the demonstration? It was a demonstration in front of the Israeli and in front of the Palestinian Authority about Nazar. It was on, I think it was on Friday. I had planned to go, but then somebody was supposed to come early to bring something, and they didn't come on time, so I ended up not being able to go. But I'm hoping to try to get to some more protests and stuff. I'm sure they'll be going on all summer, and we'll see how things go. There's a big drought now, a big problem with water. So I'm wondering if the situation with the water is going to cause more and more conflict because they haven't had the normal amount of rain. I was talking to my friend in Jordan, my flatmate in Amman, and he told me the reservoirs are getting really low. The government in Jordan usually delivers weekly. Once a week you get your water tank filled. Now it's every other week. And what he does when he runs low, he buys these tanks of water that you can buy commercially. But there's really a problem now as the summer goes on, that they didn't have the rains that they usually have in the spring. So things are very dry, and there's going to be a water battles. The farmers need water. The Israeli farmers grow very intensive plants that suck up a lot of water. This has been a problem since the very beginning. And the Syrians also took a lot of water. Now I don't think they can get so much access to it because of the Golan Heights being held by Israel. I'm not sure how much they're taking now, but poor Jordan, because it's at the bottom of the river. The river is like a trickle, so when I go back, I'll see how narrow it's gotten, but it's really dangerous because when people don't have water, they're going to fight for it. And I think it has been predicted that there's going to be water wars and stuff. But here's something that happened right here in Times Square that is kind of interesting. So I'm going to play this. This is a Palestinian protest and poetry. Palestinian poetry in Times Square.
Let's go
inside, shall we?
This is a poem I wrote entitled Crimson Rain.
I'm going to put my mask on. Give me a second, guys.
We're going on right now.
Let us go in and show you guys.
Palestinian, it does not matter. We are from Palestine and our hearts matter here. I walk through glass and stone and sand for the people of Palestine to return to their land. Earth that was once lush and teeming with life is now a wasteland of emptiness, hurt, and strife. Children cry until their pleas go hoarse as missiles litter the sky with no ounce of remorse. Bodies lay amongst an ocean of homes that used to be a safe land for the tired, the sweetest of sanctuaries. Yet the weeps of civilians fall on deaf ears as the children of Gaza weep with no hands to catch their tears. Imagine the home that you've loved since your days as a child crumble to dust within seconds, your past heaped within piles of rubble and dust, ashes and debris, broken bricks on shattered glass as the wounds of children bleed. The people of Palestine, please hear our call. Here's to no more territories, no more blockades or walls. Smiles will return to the faces of your youth, for the fights that matter most are those for the truth. The babies of Gaza should awake to the tunes of singing doves, not the racket of airstrikes clouding skies from up above. Animals choke on the air they once so easily inhaled as rockets demolish the same homes which instantly turn into jails. Prisons of rubble with sentences for life, no bails out on the horizon of these concrete bars made of strife. City streets are painted with the darkest of crimson as the visions of a nightmare become the reality so many live in. The reality in which a mother is ripped away from her daughter amidst the scarlet rain of senseless grief and slaughter. Mama are the words she will no longer get to hear as the eyes that once flood rain cannot form any more tears. A lifetime of memories will never see the light as 9 months inside a womb just to go inside a tomb. Milestones will never have the blessing of being met as heaps of discarded dreams are tossed over hospital beds. Little bodies of the innocent, wrapped in white, scatter the room as they dot graves like petals which never got the chance to bloom. Why do we idly watch the suffering of our own flesh in vain, drowning to death before our eyes from an everlasting rain? Rain that takes away the light and promises no tomorrows, washing every glimmer of hope to replace it with a brand new shade of sorrow. World leaders sit upon thrones of money and greed, bathing in the drops of blood every single martyr bleeds. So while the grass is stained red and the skies no longer blue, our tax dollars fill the pocket of men like Netanyahu, who'd fund the suffering of thousands rather than lend a helping hand as generations are wiped out in seconds in the fight for their rightful land. Allah, I ask you from the depths of my soul to ease the suffering of those who simply cannot bear the toll of their loved ones being ripped away from limb to aching limb, because the suffering of Palestine should break us all up from within. The people of Gaza, I break down at your plight, and for you to see the light again, I trade all my days for nights. I reach my hands up to the heavens, imploring for the time when people simply existing should not be considered a crime. Our hurt is collective, and this pain unified, as I know flowers will bloom over the same ground where fallen tears have fully dried. So please take a moment right now and remember those who perished. Let their lives serve as memories for every living soul to cherish. But perhaps hope lies within the windows of this sorrow as rain clouds leave the skies in time for a new tomorrow. A tomorrow in which we all have a hand in forming as the blackest nights make way for the glorious of all mornings. So no matter your color or faith or creed, red is the very shade every single one of us bleeds. My responsibility lies within the power of my words, so I'll repeat every rhyme until every line is heard. It is my hope within our lifetime that every inch from land to sea will make way for a Palestine that is by all means free. Thank you.
God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you. That was very beautiful. Beautiful. You're welcome. God bless you. That was beautiful. Thank you. She took the road.
Not another cent.
That was
no another
wonderful.
dime. No more money for Israel's crime. Not another cent. I didn't want to offend her and hand her the rose. All right, now it's time to go help people. I started off in a very bad place today, but I see people.
How's everybody doing today?
Guys, let me make it very clear to everybody that every person over there is Indian.
And the attendance is not as it should be. I know everybody's going to D.C.
Every person over there is Indian fighting for Palestine.
The battle for Palestine is still not over. Gaza is still under siege.
I love when people
2006.
Try to help other people.
Palestine is still occupied since 1948. Every inch of Palestine back.
It was really long. Her poem was very long, but it was absolutely from her heart. I could tell. I'm a poet, and if you just say words that rhyme, it means nothing. She many times I was listening to her. She took a pathway in her writing to drive home a point. It was extremely tragic. If you play it back, it was very sad and really hard to listen. I almost stopped recording a couple times, like, very sad.
Wow, nice. That was great. That was great. So it's a good way to end our session today with that beautiful, beautiful poem.
Yes, so thank you.
Yeah, that was so great.
Who was she? Do you know who she was?
I know. The name was
not someone you know.
Yeah, I have it. It's on the video.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. Let me see if I can find it. Perhaps find Free Palestine in Times Square. It was a rally. They give her name in the beginning. But it's on YouTube. I can send it to you, but it was very. I'll look for it, and when I upload the video, I'll try to.
Oh, okay.
And Imran, he was watching us on Facebook Live.
Okay.
I'm not sure where you are watching us from. Maybe Jordan. Are you watching us from Jordan or Palestine or wherever? But anyhow, welcome, Imran. So thank you so much, Charlotte, for joining and supporting. The good news is I have a young female journalist who was a student of Phil Hopper, who did the presentation on graffiti in Palestine and Ireland a couple months ago. She's a young journalist and she's in Hebron, and she's going to meet with us next Saturday and tell us about the situation for journalists.
Are you changing from Sunday to Saturday on a regular basis?
Change it, yeah, for the summer, because
for the summer, right.
Are gone on Sundays, and it's also easy
right.
for me
right.
because I have my grandkids that I try to take to church on Sunday, and I sleep overnight Saturday night because I don't have a car anymore. My car, I had to trash it, so I'm dependent on Access-a-Ride, so what it's going to be like, I think, for me is spending Saturday nights in Brooklyn and then the rest of the day in Brooklyn with my family. So we're going to move it to Saturday, and also Sunday is the first day of work in the Arab world, because Friday is their Sunday.
Oh, right.
So Friday and Saturday is their weekend, and Sunday is the first day of the week. Saturday is like our Mondays.
Okay.
So for people in the Arab world, I think having it on Saturday is probably a little more relaxing than having it. Also because it's late at night. It's our 3 o'clock is 10 o'clock.
Right.
There. So it's 10 o'clock the night before a work day. So I think moving to Saturday is a little
Better.
easy. So I would think even of moving it to Friday, but then people in this country work on Friday, so who knows? we just keep trying and see who can come on. I know some people were planning to come on today, but maybe the LinkedIn work or whatever. But you got on, so I know that's something.
Yeah.
And how are things going? How is the letter writing campaign going?
Honestly, I don't actually know. Tom might know if people have reported to him that they've written letters, so I don't really have an update on it. But,
Yeah. I wrote some last month, and I'm going to write some more.
Yeah.
What I need to do is get with Nadler, who I actually know personally, not well, but enough to that we know each other. I need to work on Nadler. I've been working on him for years. I bump into him in crazy places, like even hospital waiting rooms and stuff. So I feel God keeps putting me in his path.
Yeah.
And I just, and he's a nice guy. This is what's so painful. These are good people.
Yeah.
Schumer's good. Natter's good. My relatives, my Zionist relatives are good people. But they just have this blind spot when it comes to Israel. And I understand it. I'm old enough. I'm not, I have, my cousin was a Holocaust survivor. I get their anxiety and fear. But it violates Jewish ethics. I was reading Maimonides and about, the ethical treatment, ethical behavior, and everything Israel is doing to the Palestinians is a total violation of Jewish ethics, aside from the law and the Bible, who says treat strangers nicely. It's so painful for me, Charlotte. It makes me really depressed, and I just have to. But I'm heartened by the fact that Jewish Voice for Peace has grown so strong. And, there's so many people speaking out. I was happy to read about that guy, Greenstein in England, challenging the Labor Party. And actually, what I thought it was great that he called them anti-Semitic. That was something we need to use that line, because that's absolutely true when you think about it, that all Jews are the same. They're frightened, and if they criticize Israel, they're going to tremble and they're going to think you're going to put them in ovens or whatever. It's very anti-Semitic, stereotypical. So I think his point should really be developed in our thinking, and use that idea. I'm going to use it when I'm going to write a letter. I'll write another letter to Schumer, and I think I'm going to start dropping them off of their office. I don't know if they ever look at them, emails. Maybe I'll make a copy of some of my paintings and of Palestine, make a package for him with some letters. But I think that idea of using that it's anti-Semitic,
right,
to say Jews can't criticize Israel, that nobody can criticize Israel because Jews can't take it. BS, So, I think that was an interesting article. I wonder what's going to happen. I doubt that their labor is going to have the guts to sue them. But they're crazy. Look what they did to Corbyn.
They could.
Yeah.
Oh, Jackie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlotte. It was so nice to see you.
Nice weekend. Very nice to see you. Yes.
Happy. Have a happy. Okay. Bye, everybody. Bye. Thank you for coming to Zoom Palestine. Thank you.
Bye.
As-salama. Peace. Salam, shalom.